On today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Jacques Esterhuyse, a good friend of mine with whom we do a lot of business. Jacques is a attorney in the property space, but also an avid traveler and adventurer. Jacques been a true source of inspiration for me through not just what he's achieved through property investment and the life that's been able to build for him, but also his zest for life and the way in which he approaches challenges. Welcome to the Property Corner with myself, Rowan Alexander. Jacques, thanks for making time for me. I always enjoy having discussions with you. We always have a good laugh, and I think there's parts that I can relate to. There's maybe some parts that I envy, the some of the fun that you have, and some of the things that you've achieved, are truly inspirational to me. So, what I want to do today is maybe to unpack that a bit and share, the privilege that I've had of learning from you and taking inspiration of certain things. Maybe sharing that to a wider audience and having a greater impact in that way. So thanks for making that time. So jumping straight in, looking back to the early days when Jacques Esterhuyse started off as a transferring attorney, what drove that decision, for you to create your own business? What was that thing that pushed you over the edge to say, well, I'm not working for someone anymore. I want to do my own thing. I want to be my own boss.
So when I started out, I think I'll take it a step back. I've since the age of 12, I kind of worked. I wanted to do newspaper deliveries. Every holiday, I wanted to work somewhere. And I quickly realized, but you can have still have a social with your friends and then work and earn some income. So I'm always used to doing my own thing. And then when I finished my articles, the firm that I worked for said, but there's no future for me. There's no permanent work. And then I got an opportunity with another guy to start a practice from scratch. And I think at that time, because I was 26 years old, I had no responsibility, stayed or lived with in a commune with 4 or 5 other people. It was easy just to start your own thing. If I had responsibilities, maybe it was a different thing. But I knew from day one I wanted to have my own practice, my own, just create my own future when it comes to business.
So, having done a number of things, while you were younger, that obviously installs a certain entrepreneurial skill. And how did that, when you were doing these different things, when was that moment? Like, what did you think at that stage? What would you become?
I don't think of anything I want to become. I think back in the day when I started, LA law was a thing. And I thought, yes, it looks cool to be a lawyer. But I battled a bit through school with my grades or my marks. And then even in high school, at one stage, I was going to the police, and I had my train ticket to go to the army at that stage. And then I got exemption to go and study latter part of matric, and then Bloemfontein was my only destiny at that stage. And then why not law? And I think it was easier to get into law then than now. But I love law and I love property. Even then, we moved a lot. We moved literally every 2 years. So, moving to new towns, you got to know not the transfer process, but everything that goes in a property and things like that. So I think that's where the whole thing started. And I've got a passion for property and like meeting new people. And I've also quickly realized in my articles that litigation it's never ending, and it's where properties is a clean game, and you deal with people that are mostly happy and excited to be involved in property transactions.
So, if you look back at a lot of entrepreneurs and you read some of their books, their life story, the people tend to reflect upon, their years and maybe connecting the dots in later years between parents, siblings, growing up, maybe events like moving around a lot. do you feel and do you think that had any influence on, the person that you are today, and maybe ultimately driving to that decision to doing your own thing?
When we moved to a new town, I was never, if I say a nice experience, you just settled into a town, and later on you knew every 2 years we'll move. But the thing that was nice, I was good in sport. I liked sport and I excelled in sport. But, you're good. You play A team, then you move to another town, you've got to start in a D team. And that determination, it was installed by my parents, and then I want to succeed. I'm a competitive person, doesn't matter what it is. I might not be good, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And that was, so that competitiveness you can carry over to work. The same when I worked as a student as well, that commitment. You've got to wake up. There's people depending on you, your teammates, your colleagues at work. So, it's not rocket science. You just need to have the right attitude. For me, it's all about attitude.
And taking that competitiveness and turning it into a drive is something that top agents, top businessmen, entrepreneurial people very often, that's a special ability to have, is that competitive nature that you've spoken about. One of the other things that, looking at your journey and discussing it, is that moving around, moving from town to town and meeting new people, having to prove yourself, I suppose, to a certain extent, showing, your steel again, that constant grind. Do you think that do you think that sort of installed a certain, confidence to be able to deal with changing environment? That's something that I would think.
I won't say I take it by stride. That's not true, but it makes it easier because your whole world isn't built around one thing or one community or client or whatever the case may be. We had a lot of setbacks in our business for various reasons, but those things also molded you, but it's going to be okay because there's other avenues, and you've been in situations where you have to fight again, start over again, and it's doable. People go through it every day, so it's nothing special. And I go back to you just need to grind it out sometimes, and things will start changing for you for the better.
So, Jacques, when you mentioned at the age of 26, you for the first time started your own business, and many people would look at that and think there's a lot of naivety, in that, in being 26, not really knowing what it's all about. And I've got a friend who always makes a funny comment, and he'll mention and say, but the ball to brain ratio, is out. And like being so naive, or being perceived to be naive at the age of 26. How do you think that played a role? Do you think you were naive? Looking back at that time, sort of, I'm sure you thought you knew everything. You were the best thing since sliced bread, or sliced cheese. Well, I don't know I can't remember the saying, but do you think being naive and not knowing sort of what things entail, do you think that's something which you'll see it today? Very often in our businesses, young people come in, and I think it's a characteristic that people often underestimate. When you see someone who's naive and doesn't really know what things entail, they'll often be discarded. Where I think there's a certain element of having to be naive to be able to achieve great things and accomplish certain things. Looking back, when you were 26 and started this, I'm sure you can tell us a lot of stories about how you were naive. But do you think that had a effect?
There's a huge role to play in starting a business, and the fact that, like I said earlier, I shared a house with 4 other guys. You had minimal financial means to no responsibility. So it was, if I failed and I couldn't, get a firm off the ground, I always thought, but I can go and work then for someone else. It's okay. I'm young. I can, and that plays a huge role. I think a lot of people with responsibilities, family and financial responsibilities, it's just so much more difficult for them to make a decision and go for it. It's not easy, you know. So so that and some luck as well. I'm a firm believer now and then you need some luck. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, competition in the real estate sector can be intense.
Yeah.
You know, we know all about it, and especially in the attorney world. You know, competition can be intense. And do you ever feel that weight, you know, of competition, that you know, like competition is too much, or it could be too much, or it's crippling, or you know, that it installs any instance of fear? You know, how do you view competition?
You know, I try and that competition be a positive drive. And at the end of the day, if you start, it's like you can't play the other lawyer or the law firm or whatever the case. You need to be the best at what you can do, control what we can do. So if we aspire to being professional, doing what we can, being the best at what we can, we will get the clients, and people need to come to us because we're the best at what we do. So I learn a lot from our competitors. If other attorneys excel, I want to learn from them, even steal from their ideas. It's not rocket science, but at the end of the day, you can also take people's ideas, but you need to execute it. So it's what you do with that information. How do you? So I try, when it comes to competitiveness, see what my competitors do. I'm on my own, if I say, mission with our firm, and try and make. So I'm not, if I say, being weighed down. It's never nice to lose a client to a competitor. You kind of take it personal. But at the end of the day, you need to stick to your guns and go forward.
I think, you know, very often competitors, you know, pressure that goes along with that competition, that competitive nature that you touched on earlier, you know, those are all pressure points for emotional control. You know, very often I think you'll find yourself in a position where you really have to manage those emotions because you take things personally. You know, no matter how many times we've been told and learned not to do that, it's human nature. You will take things personally. How do you deal with that sort of thing? You know, what is your go-to? What is Jacques' go-to when you know, the emotions are triggered, when that weight is too much?
Look, we're all human. Sometimes I lose it in different ways, but you also need stress releases. And I'm fortunate in my business to also have a partner to tell me to sometimes just calm down, you know, refocus your energy and also see why competitors are pushing your buttons. You know, I try and when we hear that simple stuff that people or competitors want to if I say steal our staff, but there's also a compliment. It shows we're doing something right, and focus on those things. So we never per se entertain it. We try and convert it somehow in something positive to drive us to excel, because it also shows you're doing something right. And you need stress releases. So, I mean, you know, I like to be out there and do things, and it also refocuses you on to get, you know, focus on the job at hand and your own goals and your own ambitions. And don't worry, I call it white noise, or what's going on around you, and entertain that kind of negative talk.
What I'm hearing in that is a certain, you know, need to self-assess, you know, and to be self-aware, because I think very often when you are triggered by emotions, take things personally, if you're truly honest with yourself and you sit down, that's very often the moment where you can create the most improvement. You know, where you will so close that hole, you know, where something leaked out, or so that's also a special ability to be able to actually just sit back and take that shot, and then know, okay, well, you know, they did outperform me, they did do something better, but to be able to then regroup and look forward. So how do you make time, or how do you go about making time for that sort of reflection? Not just as a business or as a group, but on yourself. You know, do you make time? How do you make time? You know, what do you find the best way to actually go about that self-evaluation?
Look, in the past I've made a lot of mistakes in management, the way you manage your staff, your clients, things like that. So over time, we surrounded ourselves with staff, good staff, getting people in the right place. It gave you opportunity to, if I say, break away from the office, get sometimes out of your environment, and in a more relaxed atmosphere, look back at your business, yourself, where you are, things like that. And then obviously, one thing I never had was a mentor in my life. Maybe due to I was just not sharp enough to go and look for someone, or never met someone. But I made a lot of mistakes. And now, as I got older and more into it, you meet like-minded people, different businesses, and you bounce ideas off. And sometimes you find out, but it's not even an industry that's related to our business, but they've got the same challenges. And sometimes I always say it's okay, because I've got the same challenges as the next guy. And then you also find, but that's just life. It's just what business is about. So it's how you then, and when you come back to the office, you also know it's not just your company. Everyone's got those challenges. And you work with people with emotions and a very tough environment, and clients with certain expectations. But it's also sometimes good to understand, but the things you do, you're doing the right things. And that's just how life is sometimes. And business, that's just the demands of business. So, but that comes over time with maturity, bouncing ideas off like-minded people, and then just sometimes just break away and get off the grid and reboot, and there you go. So I just think it's sometimes very important to not always spend time with people in your industry, to spend time with people out of your industry, so you can just see, but this is just the way business works. And that sometimes also makes things, like I say, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is what business is about.
I enjoy that too. I enjoy spending time with people in other industries. Because very often you find that is once you strip out all the nuances of your particular trade, those threads of challenges are very often the same, especially in entrepreneurship. And these things about how you're doing self-evaluation, dealing with competition, dealing with your own staff, dealing with your work-family relationship, balancing your life, finding time to do the breakaways. These are common threads no matter what industry you're in. So while we're on sort of the topic of building, sort of the people around you and how you've done that, I think one thing that I've picked up is, in dealing with you, is the ability to leverage, whether that be relationships, people, putting the best people, in the job, in the position, whether that be within your workforce or with partners or whatever. Partnerships also, I think, are a very powerful tool, and, one which you've actually used, tremendously. Is there when was that moment of, that you realized that partnership, that collaboration is the way in which you would be able to achieve greater things rather than attempting it on your own? Because, people do these things differently. Some people venture on their own. Some people, do partnership. What was your, at that age of 26 and recurring throughout your life, what drove you to those partnerships? Why did you seek partnerships?
I quickly realized that you can only do so much in a day. It doesn't matter who you are. And then you need people. You can't run a business without people. And then I also linked up with partners that you've outgrown very quickly. Some partnerships lasted longer, the same with staff. But it took me, to be quite honest, quite a while to realize that we're not the same. My work ethic, my partners' work ethic at the time, for example, our staff's work ethic, and I say work ethic, they've got other responsibilities. So the fact that I can work late or over weekends doesn't mean the next guy can. He's got family responsibilities or issues at home, and that doesn't make them a bad employee. And the same with partners. Everyone needs to play a role to grow a business. And it took me a while, to be honest, before that penny dropped. And I realized, but everyone brings something different to your work environment. And everyone's got a different ability and an ambition and all these kind of things, whatever you want to call it. So as long as they've got good work ethic and work hard, there's a spot for them in your business. And you need partners to bring something else to your business, that gap that you can't fulfill. And and that you can't do without it. It took me a long time to be honest, to realize, but I need to change it, and I need to put certain things, and I'm not good with certain aspects. And I'm a big believer, horses for courses. And it's a pity I didn't pick it up early. And I'm sure now, today, if anyone asks me for advice, that's the first thing I tell them. Get the right people in the right positions. We work with people every day, not just with people in the property, but buyers, sellers. And you need to line up the right people. Everyone that's got emotions run high, and people buy and sell for different reasons. And the secretaries, for example, or your attorneys need to be able to deal with those people. And some are better than others. So, yeah, it's so important to be a team. You can't achieve things without a team. And even the people behind the scenes, I always say, our clerk in the deeds office has just as important job as what I do, because it doesn't help you do all the hard work and he drops a ball, not doing his part at the deeds office. So it remains any business, in my opinion, is a team effort. And although, people will give me the credit and blah, 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 but without a team, you're nothing. That's the reality of it.
The team management,
I was drawn from that. Been there, done that T-shirt. Yeah.
That's as an entrepreneur, that must surely be, you understand why the Alex Fergusons and of the worlds, and these guys, are respected in the way that they are, because people management and team management is exceptionally hard. I find it, I struggle with it. I think it's something that I'm always looking for advice and new ways to inspire teams, to keep them together, to get the best out of them. How do you deal, Jacques, with that with that moment that you've employed someone, or someone's working for you in a team with someone that they're brilliant at what they do, but they've got challenging personalities, and I think especially in an attorney environment where there's a lot of power, a lot of egos, that bag all together. How do you deal with that? Because very often you'll find that those strong personalities, those strong egos, are people that would pioneer, that would shift mountains. But that you find them very disruptive. And, that's a common thread across all industries you come about. But how have you dealt with that over time?
Look, we try, especially if someone comes from the outside, someone who starts and they've got their own ideas and things. We try, and they need to understand our culture.
If I can maybe re-ask that question.
Okay.
Is how do you deal with it as Jacques? How does
I don't deal well with it. No, I don't deal well with it. And I think it starts with the fact that I started the firm. So I'm not going to allow people to come from the inside and undo and be disruptive. I don't care how ambitious you are, and cause damage to the firm and reputation. So I don't tolerate it. And this is the way we do it. And there's more than enough space to grow. We've got structures, we've got HR. My partner is very good at it and dealing with people. But to be quite honest, I've given up on people and trying to manage it. Every day there's something else. If it's not this, it's that. And I'm a big believer in walk the talk. Keep quiet, get on with the job. Prove to me you're worth everything you want to say. Because there's a reason why we do certain things in the firm. We've made so many mistakes. We've done that, is what they sometimes call that a corporate memory. And so, you know what, I love youngsters with ambition, but I do not, yeah. First prove yourself and then start changing the way we do things and come with your ideas and things like that. So
because that's one of those pressure points, where I think also, having that ability to be able to not discard, being, just discarding someone being naive, or
you have to explain to them your reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
So we'll never just discard people, but we'll explain to them why and why not. And so and I think a lot of people want to be pampered, especially the younger generation. They grew up that way. But I also believe honesty, being hard on people. And if I say hard, you mentioned hard work, working your people hard. But if being hard on your people is to aspire to being the best at what you do, professional things like that, then then it's hard to work for me.
Okay, but Jacques, and that would lead me to my next question: is how hard do you work people?
I work them, I push them. People need to be out of their comfort. They need to work because we see everyone that's here, we see potential in. I want to be proud of our staff. I want our staff to be proud of us as directors, the direction of our firm, of each other. You have to respect your colleagues. And so I'm very proud of myself and what we want to achieve here. And like I said, no, if that means we're going to drive you hard to achieve your ability and your potential, we will do it because people need to grow. And this is a place to grow. And if you don't like it, then it's very unfortunate. But I like to get the best out of people. And
it's always interesting for me how people achieve that in different ways.
Yes.
Because, and that's, I think, what I'm trying to understand is with that personality type, with the sort of background, with the people that you surround yourself with, if people didn't take to that, they wouldn't be here. If people didn't take to that, you wouldn't have those relationships.
I must say, I think all credit to my partner because she takes a lot of that heat off. She knows, or she'll tell me, listen, leave that person alone today. Simple stuff. It's just family issues, so don't be hard on them today. Don't drive them, or just let me handle the issue, or things like that. And that's where you kind of dovetail. And you need that soft touch, that people that's actually in touch. Because I come into the office and it's, balls to the wall. And sometimes you just need also someone just to buffer.
So to make yourself feel better, do you ever feel or find that having that sort of hard approach whereby you set a standard, you drive the standard, you work towards something, there's a constant improvement, that trait, I mean, surely that must serve as an inspiration and a motivation for people who don't have that, or even to people who do have that personality type. Because if someone's leading from the front, and if someone's truly walking the walk and not just talking, there's inspiration in that. Because let's be honest, it's not all, it's very glamorous from the outside. All industries, all leadership, all, positions of power and authority and risk. They're always, sort of rosy from the outside. But there's those moments that you need to get into the gutter, that you need to do what you need to do. And there needs to be a certain grit, to get through that. And so surely there's inspiration and motivation in that, as long as you are doing and leading from the front. Because you can look at it in one way and view Jacques and say, well, Jacques is driving hard and has no emotion and whatever the deductions that you make from that. But in the same way, I can look at that and say, well, someone needs to be setting that standard. someone needs to be driving it. Someone needs to be reinforcing it every day. And a lot of people, very often that I've met in my journey, have that in them, and they find ways to manage it so as to that it doesn't, start discouraging people. Either through distancing themselves, having intermediaries, finding people who can complement them, but that personality trait, that constant competitive nature, you keep coming through, that desire to improve, that desire to be better and to get the best out of other people. I often see that that's actually driven by yourself, wanting to improve yourself, and then expecting that from others, that they want the best for themselves. I found it very disappointing and I struggle with it, when I expect more for someone than what they expect for themselves. Because because you're not doing it just for yourself, and you get to a point where you start doing it for other people. That hurts. When you've backed someone, you've put everything in, you believe, you've put everything into that person, and it doesn't turn out that way. And that's that dark, lonely space where you're at the top. That glamorous side that people don't always see is those moments. Have you had them?
It feels like it happens too often, where we push people, where we wanted more than they wanted. You see the potential, you see the talent, and the harder you push, and then one day they just resigned, and then the next moment you hear they sit at home. What happened? And it's lost opportunities, and that's, my pa het altyd gesê, die water wat verby is, gaan jou meule nooit weer maal. It's lost opportunities. There's only so many opportunities. And just because you backed out so quickly, you didn't back yourself, you didn't push yourself, you didn't invest in yourself, but you've got all the talent. It's that talk is cheap. We've seen so much great talent coming through our offices. Young secretaries that studied so hard working here and for many years to become attorneys. And then they're attorneys, and when you push them to the next level, they just bail out because they don't believe in themselves. They're not surrounded by family members that support them, or whatever reason. It's for me, it's sad. We see it so often where talented people left because they don't want to back themselves. They don't, and you can talk to them. You can tell them that you believe in them, and one would hope that you lead by example. And I won't tell them my story, but I come from simple beginnings, and the same with my partner. And so it shows you by hard work, backing yourself, believing, working, grinding, knowing what's going on in your industry, it is achievable. But people sometimes they just pile out. I don't know what they think or what you're going to achieve. And I think that a lot has to do with people that's got the talent. They just want it. They don't invest in themselves to go and sit and ask myself, for example, come and have a coffee here. Tell me, what must I do? Tell me about your journey. How did you start? Because people just tend to see the end result. They're not interested where you come from, how you got here, the mistakes you made, what worked, things like that. And that's a big problem today. It's that instant gratification. You need to wait your time. You need to work to get to a point. And I just think maybe that's the society we live in. But it's very disappointing at times. But like you said, you want it more than them because you see it. You can feel their talent, and then it just falls flat.
So as an entrepreneur, that's something that I've also struggled with. And especially when you have high hopes, and you really see traits which you believe to be, necessary and good and true. And you honestly put that in. Now, how do you safeguard yourself, Jacques? Because that's a balancing act to not withdraw when something like that happens. Because if you withdraw, you stop growth of yourself, your own development, development of your business, development of others around you. If you withdraw, if you continue doing that, you expose yourself constantly.
Yeah, but that's okay, because you need people once again in your business. And I'm like, well, if you lose even a good person, and we've lost good people here for various reasons, amazingly, someone else steps in here where in the interview you had no expectation, and they shoot out the lights and bring a different direction and a lot of new dynamics to the company. So it's not all bad. It's once again about your mindset. Are you gonna want to dwell on it, or are you going to say, bring the next person, let's see if we can do something with him, maybe they can excel. So for me, it's it maybe sounds blasé, but at the end of the day, it's also an opportunity for another person. And I do think it is disruptive. If someone leaves, it's a knee jerk, you can't get past it. But if your culture is right, your structure is right, you've got good people behind you, your firm will go on and will survive. Yeah.
So, I've coming to know you, over the past number of years. I know that passion and drive is a really big motivator for you, and it installs certain emotion. We can see it even in this discussion. I can relate to that. Because I'm also someone who gets involved and is emotional in that, and use and try and find a way to channel that into change and energy and to make progression. How do you safeguard that emotion doesn't run away with you? How do you find that balance to make calculated decisions, and how do you deal with that? Because if you let your emotions run, it's very often the case that you turn back and you've made the worst decisions.
To come to business, I'm not very emotional. I'm very business orientated. And over years, with experience and being in the industry and learning from your mistakes, you just handle it much better, because you've been in that situation before, and I would say it makes it easier, but it does. It's you know how to handle it. You know what the next step is, and I go back the whole time to it's the support you've got in the firm. We've had scenarios here where your senior people step up. They'll come to you and say, don't worry, we've got this. So it makes the whole process so much easier than it was when I started out. But you've got to deal with it. You've got to program yourself with it. It can't distract you from your business and why you're here.
So, that entrepreneurship that we've been talking about, that value, puts you out there. It puts you in positions where you take these bold steps. And then those positions very often come with fear and uncertainty, when change happens or things don't really go the way that you plan. What was a specific moment in your journey, looking back, that maybe crippled you, or that was a big fear that was realized? And how did you deal with that?
Well, when I started out in the late 2008, property and being in the property game, economy was booming. Everyone was into property, and then the crunch came, the recession in 2008, 9, 10, and I realized very quickly our business is in property. My personal interest being property as well. I was overextended in property, debt, things like that. And there I nearly went under, not just personally, but in my business as well. And fortunately, I could recover from that. And that was a wake-up call in your business, not to leverage everything, not to let your lifestyle your business fund your lifestyle. You need to have a healthy, sustainable business. And you need to have money in the bank for when these things happen. And in your personal life as well. So that was, thank goodness, we could get through it. A lot of retrenchments. We had to reduce or retrench nearly 60% of our staff. I've never been through something like that. It's heartbreaking. You lose good people. But that was, when it comes to a business, just how you do your business, how you structure your business, how to look at your finances. So that was a wake-up call, fortunately, at a stage where I was still young enough, could take the knocks. And it stood me, I really relied on it in other difficult times, having that experience when we went through COVID as well. So yeah, I think that was a big thing in my earlier part of my career that I went through that. Yeah.
Where did you find the courage at the time?
Well, you just had to work through it. I mean, there's what you're going to do. You just need to work harder, work smarter. We reinvented ourselves in a sense with our client offering, our services, our professionalism, what we wanted to do, how we want to take the business forward. It was a long journey from there. It was a long recovery. Fortunately, we could hold on and work through it. And but once again, it's support from your clients. I always go back, even in these economic times we're in now, although we don't get business from our clients because they're suffering, are they still our clients? Are they still loyal to us? Are they, or do we still have a good working relationship? And as things pick up in their space, things will pick up in our space. So it's going back to basics. Just get the basics right and control what you can and make sure those things are in place. But the big thing is not to get desperate, because people see your desperation, people see the anxiety, and people in general don't want to work with people that show that. So you need to be confident, although you're nervous and stressful, but you need to keep it together.
So recoveries, from positions like that and finding that courage to soldier on, put one foot in front of the other, there's very often a pivotal moment, and those extreme lows are connected to the highs. And whether that be that moment of change or whether it be the success that's then enjoyed in later years, what was that pivotal moment for you?
Going back to basics, I realized don't dream too big. I remember a time before the recession, where we would get together at that stage, a few other partners, where we would have meetings, 5-year planning. Now, after that, we don't even do a 5-week planning. It's just, work, and then you start setting goals, more realistic goals. Although you've got a big goal or dream for your company, but set realistic goals, achievable goals. And then once you reach that, move on to the next. Just keep on moving. And over time, so it's nothing specific, but over time you realize, but this is how we should run a business. This is the right track we're on. And once again, as you put yourself out there, you learn from others' experience, see what they do, how do they manage their staff, their businesses, their finances, things like that. And to go back, I think I would encourage any youngster that's an entrepreneur to spend time with other entrepreneurs, because you learn so much. I learned through trial and error, and it is costly and it's expensive. And if I look back in my life, I should have made an effort to go and look for these people. And people like to share their knowledge. There's a lot of guys out there that want to share their knowledge, but will, over a beer, just tell their story, the mistakes they made, the successes, things like that. And it's sometimes they just, the answer, what to do. Just coming from someone that's achieved something or in his space, it's invaluable.
So I think, when you go through those sort of challenges, you learn obviously things that you need to pick up and change on, and not having been through the same sort of circumstances, but through difficult positions. I think one thing that turned on by me, and that I'm very grateful for, is I almost have a complacency sensor, and that's something which I try and use to. The moment I start feeling comfortable, you start questioning, are you complacent? But what I found is that very often that complacency is, I would realize that I'm in that space of complacency due to a fear or an anxiety being triggered. It might be something simple, like stepping away from the office for a quick lunch with Jacques or something like that, and a feeling of guilt, sort of in that moment where you think, well, I've just spent an hour doing something where I could have been perceived to be more productive, but because I was doing something outside of a hard grind, very often that triggers, I think what I'm trying to explain is very often that sort of thing would trigger a fear or an anxiety in me where I'd be restless after that. And speaking to people, that reoccurrence of you need to engage with other entrepreneurs, other mentors, make time for people, spend time with other people. I find that hard because in my life, things are so rushed. Things are happening every moment. There's something new. Something's always got to be done. That very often when I find that break, or I take that break, I might be achieving something bigger during that hour, but I still feel guilty. And I still feel that anxiety creeping up, and I still feel, and I want to call it guilt because I feel guilty that I wasn't behind my computer or picking up the phone or on a site. Do you ever feel that?
Yeah, I feel it, but I've learned over the years to make every meeting, every lunch, I need to take something from it. It needs to have some positive effect on my life or my business. And let's say we lunch, we always bounce ideas off. And then also, not just in business, but I like to hear from just the things you do socially. Where you're camping, what you're doing, because that's also a reward in itself to learn what other people are doing, how they deal with things. And then, if you're asked the right questions and just find out in your space, who's your competitors, who's this, who's that, what are your challenges in your business or where you are with the development, for example, because I learn from it, but I'm also very interested in what you're doing. Because then I pick up what's happening in the property industry. From when I talk to you, if I go on a lunch with you, for example, or have a beer, you'll tell me, then I know where I need to travel next or go away for a weekend. So these things need to have a positive effect on you. So I don't do like that's called bubblegum lunches where there's nothing. It's just a giggle and a laugh, and that I can do over weekends or whatever. But an office time, working time, it needs to count. Things need to count, and that's where you surround yourself with and how you socialize. Yeah.
So, you've throughout your journey, you've been involved in property as an attorney, but you've also found property to be an investment class where you've made investments, you've become a serial property investor, where it has helped you create a life for yourself and doing, being able to live a life that you do. On the topic of guilt, do you ever feel guilty about what you've achieved? Is there ever a moment where you think back and you think, well, am I worthy? How did I do it? Why me? Is there ever that? Does that ever instill upon you?
I won't say no. I don't feel guilty because I don't think I've achieved so much because I just see opportunities that you can achieve more and more. So, but I'm grateful. I'm extremely grateful for the life I lead, the privileges that I have, the people I meet. So I'm extremely grateful for what this job and company and the people that's worked here over the years and our clientele has given me. So I feel very blessed and grateful, but I don't feel guilty. Yeah.
So those real estate investments that you've made over the years have obviously helped shape a certain degree of financial freedom. And can you recount the moment that you realized that, that property was a mechanism, that you could use to leverage and create wealth? What was that light bulb moment, and how have you sort of then gone about actually executing a strategy to focus on that and to use property as an asset class?
I must say, when I just started out, I was fortunate to meet a few property investors, and the one thing they showed me and taught me is property investment is a long-term strategy. So I started investing in property back in the day in Goodwood and in Boston and all these places, with the idea I'm gonna. This is not my day job. This is not gonna enrich my life, and I'm gonna live off it within the next. My bond was for 20 years, so this is a 20-year thing. But I quickly realized as property prices escalated, the rent went up. I could buy now 2 or 3 more properties a year from that. So I saw it from day one. Initially, I had to, every month pay in and to help pay the short on the bonds. But eventually, this thing started carrying itself, and I just leverage against it, and I don't live off that money. And that's the one that you just need to give it time. And once again, I realized also very quickly that don't let your lifestyle stop you from investing. It's the same with shares. I think the biggest mistake people do, they earn a very good salary, but they just live too high. So they never have money to invest, but just tap down on your car and your house and your holidays, and there will be money every month to subsidize a property or buy more properties or shares or whatever the case may be. But the one thing I've realized very quickly is that your lifestyle kills you. So property has been good for me, but it's a thing that there's no, here and there you hear about people making money overnight, but that's few and far between. It's a hard slog.
So with that strategy, having that long-term view, how have you gone about assessing opportunities? So, what factors do you consider when you make, those property investments?
Well, initially it was where I could afford a property. But then over time, and the cash flow with the rental income and things like that, but then over time, I bought in better areas, but then there's a short on your rental and your expenses. And in 2008, because of those monies I had to pay in every month, and I couldn't, I had to sell properties in a fire sale and just get rid of it. And after that, my whole strategy has changed that my properties don't have pavement appeal. They're purely on investment and return. So, we all want nice houses to say this is part of my portfolio or this or that. But I go now where there's a rental return. You always have a tenant. You'll always be able to sell it at the right price. But for me, the cash flow, I'm just after cash flow. So that's my motto.
It's interesting how that strategy changes due to financial position, time on hand in your life. You've got that philosophy that we'll get to just now, but it's interesting, and I see it very often. How people's strategies change. While they've perceived to have time on their side, they will take greater risks. You mentioned it when you were 26 starting off a company. When 2008 you had the downturn, you've had 15 years to recover. The greater risks, and I suppose to a certain extent, when you don't have anything to lose, you've got nothing to lose. And how that also ends up playing a role into being taking less risk the moment you have something to lose, and then maybe steering towards an initial sort of drive that might have been to create wealth and to change financial position, which then became you achieved it on whatever level you do, and then it becomes about preservation. And what I enjoy about that, about properties, is that it offers that ability, right throughout. Whether you're getting in right at the end from a retirement perspective, or whether you're young and you're wanting to take a big risk and chase that capital growth, it really, caters for everyone in that way. Jacques, throughout this in your personal life, what's been a moment that you can look back on? We've discussed that lows and the business and the 2008s and those moments. But what are the things that you cherish, sort of in your life that you say, well, that was a moment that if I look back on, I was proud and I felt a sense of achievement. And what are those highlights for Jacques?
Yeah, it's so many things. There's no one thing because, So I'm a firm believer to enjoy life and reward yourself, and that's from holidays or toys, whatever the case may be. So if the opportunity is there and the means are there, then I like to, enjoy the fruit of your labor as such, because you need to make the most of life as well. It's not always about work. There's more to, and you can enjoy it in simple ways, simple things as well. But I've been blessed to have amazing support in my life from my parents, from my wife, my partner now, things like that. So it is, it means so much, and it's much easier to achieve, if you refer to as success, if you surround you with people that support you. So without that support, you won't be able to achieve much in life. For me, it's a collective.
So if you were to sit down with your younger self, at that start of the journey now, what advice would you give to your younger self looking back now?
Maybe don't take yourself so seriously at times, and be so competitive, and just put the right structures in place. Invest in yourself, in knowledge, and your contacts with people, and things doesn't have, it's building blocks. You need to build a long-term thing. And if I say competitive, I used to compete with big firms that's been around for 50, 100 years. It takes time to build something and surround you with a team that can take you forward. But a knowledge of your industry, and put yourself out there. You've got nothing to lose. Stay away from dodgy characters. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And if I talk to my son, don't know what he's going to do one day as well, is so many people, but you never ask for the advice. And people like to give advice just by running a business and to keep you level-headed. I think that's a thing.
Yeah. So you've got a daring spirit. You've taken on this adventure to drive around the world on your motorcycle, breaking it down into bits. And, I know your story, having chatted about it before. Having that spirit, I think, is very often, you see it in being able to be spontaneous, make instant decisions, being able to adapt to change, and like we've discussed. When you found that spirit clashes with your work environment, your family, how have you managed that?
Yeah, on my adventures, I go, especially when we went through Africa now, is you border at times of being a bit reckless, where you can't do it in business, because on that trip, it's you and the mate I ride with, and you don't have per se any responsibility in that moment where you are. Where at work, your decisions has got a huge responsibility and effect on your staff, your clients. So you can't be reckless in business. You need to make sure you can cover your bases when you make decisions and follow it through. In Africa, on our bike trips, we wing it a lot. Don't worry where you sleep tonight. Don't worry what you eat. It will sort itself out. You can't do it in business. But it also gives you that thing to back yourself. We will make it work. And you back yourself. You need to play what's in front of you and how things are going to play out. So once again, it goes back to attitude. It's how you assess situations and then make your decisions accordingly. So, there's a place for these trips and what you do at work, but but they do. What's the word? Support each other. A lot what I've done in work and realized here I take on my trips, and the same coming back. So it goes hand in hand in a way.
So you've got this concept, we tell me, Rowan, I've got, ek het net 15 goeie somers oor, and that sort of drives you in decision making, being spontaneous, doing these things, going on adventures. Tell me about something that you've experienced recently or that you've experienced on this journey, like your motorcycle trip, that you've brought back and you either thought to yourself, geez, why did I get myself into that situation? Or, or you've experienced something fantastic or a life lesson that you've seen.
Yeah.
What is that moment or two that you take back from your recent adventures?
I sometimes think I've got this big thing, as you know, I've got so many summers left, and why wait for things? I mean, when do you want to do these things in your life? And when the opportunity is there that I've got now, I want to be out there. But what you do get, unfortunately, if you're two guys that's both adventurous, is you sometimes get a bit carried away, and people will tell you and there's certain roads not to travel and there's certain things, but hey, we're from South Africa, we're fearless, we'll just go there. And then you realize when you run into situations, we ran into bandits and things like that, okay, this was not a smart move. This is now suddenly things can go terribly pear-shaped, and you've got to think on your feet there. And fortunately for us, we could, in a few instances, get out of it. But sometimes it's good to follow advice and not put you in situations. So especially in Africa, we traveled Europe now. It's a very easy breeze. But in Africa, stay on kind of the beaten track. Don't try and think you're going to travel where other people don't travel. Although it's experience of note, and we've seen places and encountered situations and things, and it's great, and I'm here to tell the story. In those moments, it wasn't always fun. When you stop somewhere, you can get a beer, it's a good giggle and a laugh, but it also makes you feel alive. It's also pushing yourself and how you handle situations, and surely you can't go through life by just always worrying what's going to happen. I mean, it's not what I want to be remembered for. You need to go out there and see what's out there. The same if it's our business or personal, just explore, because that's how you're going to explore yourself. And also what I've realized is I've seen now so many parts of the world, but the people that live, you normally when you go fly into Kenya, people go do the travel routes. Now I spent nearly a month in Kenya, and I know what's going on the ground. I know how these people live and what their fears are and things like that. So you've got a better understanding for Africa in general and people on the ground. So yeah, you can live your life through a TV screen, or you can go out there and do it yourself.
So I think maybe that touches on sort of the way that you're living your life and how you're running your business, maybe starts triggering thoughts. Well, the sense of the legacy, that you would leave, be it in your business, be it in your family. These are things which are also hard to grapple with as a entrepreneur, business owner. You think you don't like to entertain thoughts of succession, or thoughts of sort of, stepping out or whatever. What is, at this point in time, because I'm sure if you've asked this question to yourself over the years, you'd have different answers. But at this point in time, what is driving your legacy? I mean, there's only so many deals that can inspire you. There's only so many sort of summers that can inspire you? When you now start being, sort of still with yourself, what is that source of inspiration now when you start thinking, is something like a legacy a source of inspiration?
No, I don't know. Legacy is also, what's your definition of a legacy, and what does it mean to you? For me, at this stage of my life, if I say inspiration, I want people to feed off my energy. And I refuse to live in the past. I live for now and tomorrow, and make the most of it. Don't think too far ahead. I want to be part of something good. To think that this firm started from myself, now we employ 70 people. Once again, it's a team effort. And whatever happens after this, and whoever takes it, there's a foundation that's been set up for the next generation or the next people to build, hopefully, on this. The same with my personal life. Hopefully it will inspire the people around me, my family, to know it's okay to wander out there and do things. And it's about attitude and to be positive. For me, that's important, and that if people talk about you, think about you, they want to be around you because they feel they can feed off your attitude and your energy.
So, are you content?
No, I'm too restless to be content. I'm in a good space, but there's so much more I want to achieve. There's not a specific goal I want to do, because I think that can become all-consuming. But every day I want to improve on what we're doing, on what I'm doing, where I'm going. Content isn't. I don't know. I don't know what you do when you're content. Jesus, is this not life? Is this not it? And a lot of people are content. I mean, a lot of people will say they're content. There's a lot, and that's great. And they like their routine and stuff. It's not me. I can't do it. And life is a journey, and a life is there to enjoy. Yeah.
So do you ever visualize that sort of end of that journey, or where you tap out?
No, I don't know. I would. The way I feel now and see myself, why would I stop doing it? What would I do then? The same with my travels, being it just leisurely or on my motorbike. I take so much from these trips and travels, and even in South Africa, weekends away and things like that. I want to live a full life. I can't think I must sit at home and do what? Watch TV, be on my phone the whole time. I can't do that. I'm just too restless for that. So, so content, no, that will not happen. I mean, we always joke with our bike trips that wherever we end up with our bikes, because we never want to come back to South Africa. The world is so big, there's no reason to come back, is that one day when we can't ride these bikes anymore, we're too old, it's just to give the keys to my son with a one-way ticket and say, there's a bike and there's the keys and there you go, or just leave it and trust away. So that's how I would like to, when life ends me, the story ends.
Okay, well, thanks, Jacques. I've really enjoyed these discussions. Again, as always, we have good discussions, and I find it inspiring. Because even though we have so much in common, we're so different, but we're able to find that common ground and feed off each other and share ideas, share thoughts, share new perspectives. So I thank you for that, for always being willing to do that and to put yourself out there for something like this. So thanks for that.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.